The second race weekend of the 2022-23 BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup season, and after 5 long years away, it's a very welcome return to the 2002 Winter Olympic venue at ParkCity. The track was in excellent shape in training, and for the first race of the weekend, the women's skeleton, record-setting pace was expected. After the first of the 2 heats, Kelly Curtis of the USA was one of the group of 5 athletes covered by 1700ths of a second, all potentially battling for a bronze medal. Another really strong start from the American put her in with a great chance, and she backed that up with top sliding down the track. Zhao Dan of China, tied for 8th place after the first heat, was the leader at this stage. But despite the young Chinese sliders' big efforts, Kelly Curtis had enough speed at the bottom to see her out of the leader's box. Matt Antoine, the coach, delighted with that one. As Laura Dees came to the block, 5th after the first heat, our first race winner from Whistler, Hannah Nizer, had already dropped out of the equation, so Kelly Curtis was still the slider to beat. Another strong start from Laura Dees, feeling her way into these brand new British sleds and trying to still find a way to get the best of them. She was searing away from Kelly Curtis, and even a mistake out of the penultimate corner wasn't enough to rob her of the lead. A great effort from Laura Dees with 4 to go. Germany's Susanne Kreher was next up. She had been just 500ths of a second ahead of the British slider after the first heat. A 5:02 start cost her 2 of those precious hundredths, and from there on, Susanne was having to fight on a track that she has never seen before to try and grab a medal. She held her lead early on, all was looking good. But it gradually ebbed away, and at the end of the run, another critical exit. She had a little more of a skid than her rival, and in the red numbers at the line, dropped to 2nd spot. Laura Dees led with 3 to go. And Dees was still the leader as we got to the top 2 after Kimberly Boss, 3rd in the first heat, dropped away. Tina Hermann claimed gold in her first ever race on this track in 2016, silver in the last race here in 2017. She was in the silver medal position just 900ths behind Mimi Reneva after the first run. And she dropped behind, came ahead, and dropped behind Laura Dees as well in a nip and tuck race. But down at the bottom, out of corner 14, the critical move was made. She was clean where Dees had to clear up trouble, and that would put her in front at the line by a whisker, but enough to guarantee herself at least a silver medal once more. In a record-breaking first heat, the top 10 sleds were inside Noelle Piker-Pace's 2013 track record. Fastest of all had been Canada's Mimi Reneva with a 49.12, half a second quicker than the previous record. And she backed that up in the second heat as well. Starting faster than Tina Hermann, she never looked in doubt. But you still have to deliver on this tricky track, and she had that covered too. A great second heat from Mimi Reneva to put her firmly at the top of the pile, claiming gold in race 2 of the season, her 4th career victory.
Hi everyone, back home. Hi Ottawa. Hi Ellen, Alexina. I love you guys.
Victory for the Canadian ahead of Tina Hermann and Laura Dees has moved Mimi up to 2nd in the overall rankings behind our Whistler winner, Hannah Nizer. The track was holding up well as the men came to the line at lunchtime. A blustery afternoon, but the snow staying away. In the first run, Great Britain's Matt Weston, one of the fastest starters in the field, demonstrating how it can go really badly wrong when the sled comes out of the guides at the start. He would end up at the tail of the field, a very disappointed man. Top 5 in the second heat, Felix Kaisinger of Germany, the 24-year-old in his 20th World Cup start. And after a great getaway in the first heat, he matched it in the second, but tidied up some of the errors that crept into his first run. It was enough to put America's Austin Florian behind him. Florian had also popped the groove at the start, but was able to regather his composure, start again, and set a personal best. But Kaisinger led with 4 sleds remaining. In the top 4, the World Cup points leader. Marcus Wyatt won in Whistler, the season opener, just a week earlier. And he was on the fringes of a medal here as well. 200s out of the top 3 after the first heat. Another big start from Marcus, equaling Felix Kaisinger, and he found more pace down the track. Easing away from 500s to a quarter of a second ahead of his German rival, and making that 4/10 at the line, a big statement and a threat for the medals. In the top 3 after the first of the 2 runs, Kim Ji-soo of Korea. Another big start from him, matching Marcus Wyatt, keeping his 200ths of a second lead alive, at least at the start. But from then on, he was working too hard. Lots of tap dancing with the feet, long skids between 10 and 11, and critically at the bottom of the track, the speed had already gone before he came a little late out of corner 14. And as he raced to the line, there was just not enough momentum left. Marcus Wyatt was in the medals, Kim Ji-soo down to 3rd. The door was open then for his teammate, Jung Sung-gui. The last winner on this track in a World Cup race was their former teammate Sun Bin-young. Could Jung go where his predecessor had already done? Well, a big start from him and a great looking slide gave him every opportunity. 4:57 getaway, and he made it look like he had been doing this all his life. In fact, he did learn to slide in his early career on this track, and so he was feeling quite at home, putting Marcus Wyatt in the shade by 2/10 and a great threat for the gold. The final slider, the Olympic champion from Beijing, Christopher Groothair. Off form and disappointed with himself after Whistler, he was determined to come back. His first start a 4.70, his second a 4.61, just 400ths off the fastest in the competition, and that put him in a great place. And Groothair doesn't need much encouragement. He flowed down the track as if he was back home on German soil. A great second heat, put it beyond question. Not just 1, but 2 track records to seal his 3rd career World Cup win. Jung Sung-gui in second, Marcus Wyatt in the bronze medal position. It's Jung's 2nd career silver in a row. Marcus Wyatt, the points leader from Jung, and Groothair up to 3rd. First action on Friday morning, women's monobob with clear blue skies and overnight snow. The track was in perfect form and again, records looked set to tumble. After the first of the 2 heats, the top 5 sleds were covered by just 1/1500ths of a second. The medals were up for grabs. First on ice, Cynthia Appiah, 5th place after the first run, the bronze medalist in Whistler a week earlier in the first ever World Cup for monobob, put in a storming second run. The track record had already been broken in the first heat by 3 different drivers, and Appiah was on her way to another new mark. It started the day at a 51.80. It was now a 51.45. Appiah had thrown down the gauntlet. Switzerland's Melanie Hassler was 500ths of a second quicker than the Canadian driver over the first run, but 1300ths slower in the start. She was always looking to try and make up speed further down. Corner 4, though, showed that the Swiss sled didn't quite seem to have the control on the hard, fast ice that the Canadian did. Hassler was dropping away, the speed not so good, and the deficiency growing with every turn. A tap and a skid between 14 and 15 sealed her fate. She would be second place, a top 5 guaranteed. Cynthia Appia one step closer to the medals. The top 3 sleds were covered by 0.04 of a second. 2 Germans tied for silver, the first of whom, Laura Nolter. She found a little more at the start as well to give herself a little bit in hand over Appia. It was here that Cynthia's hopes were resting. The gap continued to drop, just 200s in front at the midway point. Nolter with the best speed though, and it looked as though she would keep it alive. Out of 14 to 15, she dropped into the red. The speed had gone, a skid and a hit, and Appia was back in the medals. With the Olympic bobsleigh champion stumbling and falling behind the Canadian, her teammate Lisa Buchwitz, Olympic champion bobsleigh brakewoman in 2018, was next up. A brand new start record. She lowered her own personal mark, and Buchwitz was on fire. A really great drive, celebrating her 28th birthday as she drove herself into the lead. A 1/10 of a second in front coming down to the final 2 corners. A smooth exit, the speed was enough. She'd grabbed the lead by a slender 200s with 1 to go.
Oh, thank you.
The final one though, Kaylee Humphries, the world champion in monobob, the Olympic champion in monobob. After a stumble at the start when her shoe came loose because she was wearing socks unusually, she retaliated in the second heat, finding another 1500s at the start. And although she was behind Buchwitz early on, the great American driver had the answer. She built the speed all the way down ParkCity's long, smooth corners to go ahead not by 400s, but by over 0.3 of a second with another brand new track record. Victory for Kaylee Humphries from Lisa Buchwitz and Cynthia Appia, and it is Humphries who takes the lead of the World Cup standings narrowly from Appia and Whistler winner Bianca Reeby. Picture postcard conditions, Friday afternoon, 2-man bobsleigh, and again everybody looking to see if Francesco Friedrich could be beaten. Hansi Lochner in the top 5 after the first of 2 runs on the 2002 Winter Olympic track, 3200s out of the lead. Brakeman Florian Bauer has never been off a World Cup podium in any race he started with Hansi. Would that be the case here? He'd need to pick up a couple of spots to do so. First thing was to defeat Simon Friedli, the Swiss driver, with a good second run. Found 1400s of a second improvement over his first trip down the ice. Hansi started quickly and he found an extra beast of speed at the bottom to take the lead. Next up, Christoph Hafer of Germany. Like teammate Lochner, he's never raced a 2-man sled here. Unlike Lochner, he's not even raced a 4-man sled here. So in unfamiliar territory, with just half a dozen training runs in both sleds to dial himself in to a track that's very different in nature to Whistler last week. Hafer fell behind from the start and never really recovered his composure. He got close, but not close enough. And by the end of the run, it was clear that Lochner would lead them with 3 sleds remaining. Could Hansi's podium streak in 2-man continue? In the top 3, and Francesco Friedrich, not the last man out of the shed, the third last, because in the first heat he'd been 1500s off the lead, and not even in second place. But a big start from he and brakeman Torsten Margis, and a much improved second run from Francesco Friedrich. Trying to break the track record set by Christoph Langen in the 2002 Olympics will have to wait for yet another season. But for Friedrich, who's never won in the World Cup on this track on 2 previous occurrences, both of which saw American sleds 1-2 in front of him, this was a stellar performance. And he was the clear leader at the line, laying down the gauntlet to his rivals. First of whom, second after the first heat, and with 900ths of a second in hand, was Michael Vogt with Sandro Michel. They'd outstarted Friedrich and Margis by 100th in the first heat, lost 100th in the second, but it was worse than that. They did not have the velocity early on in the run, and it was clear from then on that the Swiss sled would need to generate epic speed further down the track. But a skid early in the labyrinth also put a nail in their coffin. And by the time they got to the line, Friedrich was the clear leader with Vogt in the second place and 1 sled to go. Well, Michael Vogt guaranteed at least a bronze medal, but what about Team GB? Brad Hall and Taylor Lawrence. Lawrence, the newly announced Royal Navy Sportsperson of the Year, helping Brad to another big start, outstarting Friedrich and Margis in both heats and outdriving Friedrich in the first, but a skid up the top of the track saw that advantage gradually ebbing away. In a customer sled rather than the German factory-built FES, Brad Hall saw the lead slip from his grasp lower down in the track. And for the second week in a row, he claims silver as Francesco Friedrich rallies from third in the first heat to take the gold. His first win on this track since becoming junior world champion in 2011. Friedrich victorious, Brad Hall and Michael Vogt in the medals.
Hey, second, not so bad.
Not bad at all. And Brad Hall remains second in the World Cup rankings after 2 rounds. Francesco Friedrich with the perfect score. Saturday again dawned dry and clear and bitterly cold. The track once more in exceptional condition and looking very fast for the women's bobsleigh competition. Canada's Bianca Riebe, with Niamh Hockey, her brand new brakewoman, in only their first World Cup appearance in women's bobsleigh, claimed 5th place in Whistler. A week later, they were in 5th place after the first heat in ParkCity. Melanie Hassler of Switzerland had tidied up the mistakes in her first heat to try and improve her position, and Riebe dropped back early on. But the Canadian used her knowledge of the track to great effect, driving herself back into a slender lead at the line to guarantee another top 5 finish. Lisa Buchwitz is the only one of the 3 German drivers to have been to ParkCity before, but when she did in 2017, she was a brakewoman, this time as a driver, trying to back up a great start in the Monobob. She took silver on her birthday, the 28-year-old looking to try and paint herself into the medals. 4th after the first heat and holding her advantage, extending it over Bianca Riebe, laying down a big challenge for the 3 sleds that remained. Hard to remember that this is her first ever season as a World Cup driver. In the top 3, 2 German athletes and a multiple race winner on this track. Kaylee Humphries, double Olympic bobsleigh champion, has taken gold on this track in 2012 and 2016 and was the silver medalist last time we raced here 5 years ago. Humphries in the bronze medal position after taking a bronze in Whistler in the season opener, once more being challenged by the young athletes rising around her. It took her almost to the bottom of the track to regain her advantage over Lisa Buchwitz and guarantee herself and the USA a 2nd straight World Cup medal. Humphries the leader with 2 to go, including the reigning Olympic champion Lara Nolte. She was off the podium in Whistler, a little slip on her 2nd start, but that didn't affect her drive. From the critical early corners on, she held her advantage over Kaylee Humphries. It was slender, but it was enough. And the battle between the Olympic bobsleigh champion and the Olympic monobob champion continued to the line. 900 separated them after the first heat. 900 separated them after the second. They set identical second run down times. The final sled was in the hands of Kim Kalicki, our winner in Vancouver, that she'd never seen before. She'd never seen this place before either, with Leonie Fiebig on the back of the sled for the first time since January. There was a great pair of starts, putting them clear of the field, and Kalicki did not allow that advantage to go to waste. She led after the first heat by 800s, and a drive that looked as though she was on home ice in Germany put her clear of her rivals. Lauren Alter would have to be happy with the silver, as Kalicki took her second straight win to start the season. Like her counterpart Francesco Frugic in the two-man, she has a perfect score. 2 races, 2 wins. Lauren Alter and Kaylee Humphries completing the podium this time out. The German athletes are in stunning form. Kalicki and Nolte 1-2 in the World Cup, ahead of their main rival, Kaylee Humphries. As ever, the final race of the weekend, the four bangers, the four-man bobsleigh World Cup. Francesco Frugic, the two-man winner, once more the man with the target on his back, but on the track on which he has never won a medal in a four-man. A tight top 6 after the first heat saw just 3,200s cover 6 sleds, first of whom Michael Vogt of Switzerland. 487 getaway right up there among the fastest starters, and Vogt with a nice drive on the way down to put Frank Del Duca of the USA out of the leader's box. His target though was the sleds that were ahead of him. Finished 4th a week earlier in Whistler and wanted to at least match that here in the second of the North American runs. Taking the lead by 4,500s, it looked as though he had the potential to move up. And move up he did, ahead of Marcus Treichel for a top 5 finish. Next target, Brad Hall of Great Britain in 4th place, only 300s out of the medals. Hall has been the silver medalist in 2- and 4-man at each of the 3 races so far this season. With Aaron Gulliver, Taylor Lawrence and Greg Cackett, their starts were there, and they were so close to making it into the medals once more. Ahead of Michael Vogt, but the gap was coming down as the run progressed. A couple of little errors in each of his 2 heats meant that Brad Hall would have just enough to lead, but with 3 sleds still to go. The top 3 after the first heat were all from Germany. A week earlier, Christoph Hafer didn't get a second heat at all. His sled's braking system broke after the first run. They ended up in the parking lot. The sled fully repaired and back to its very best. Hafer with a really strong first heat to be only 2/10 off the lead. Dropped back early behind Brad Hall because of a slower start, but his lines were exemplary. He's never been to ParkCity before, but he made it look as though he was on home ice in Germany, coming across the line with 300s to spare to gather his first ever World Cup medal in 4-man. Johannes Lochner was one of 2 Germans to win the last time we were here in 2017 for a double 4-man weekend. Could he do it again? Well, he was 1,800s off the lead, only 200s ahead of Hafer. His team started fastest in the first heat and went better to start fastest in the second heat again, coming on strong at the start, and Hansi this weekend backing it up with another strong 4-man run. Another medal in ParkCity for Johannes Lochner to go with the gold from 2017. He would be at least a silver medalist. And victory was in the clutch of Francesco Frugic after the first heat with a near 2/10 advantage. Starting second in the field gave him a distinct advantage, and another good strong start from his team meant that he was right in there swinging. Friedrich's been coming to ParkCity since 2011 and has never won a four-man race here. All that, though, was about to change. He was in top form again, holding his first heat advantage and then extending it with a clean run down at the bottom of the track to take his second consecutive four-man win of the season, his 24th of his career and his 70th World Cup career gold medal. The man is unstoppable. Hansi Lochner and Christoph Hafer locked out the podium for Germany, but Francesco Friedrich once more is the man they have to beat, and he leads our World Cup standings with a perfect score.